Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We are so glad you could join us today for our session on Agentic AI in support, elevating your support website to excellence. My name is Drupad Madhuburi, and I will be your host for today. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Today's webinar is brought to you in collaboration with Association of Support Professionals, a global community dedicated to advancing customer support excellence. What you will notice today is an understanding where the industry is headed, what's changing for support leaders, and how we can collectively build the future of customer experience. Before we dive in, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. All the attendees will be on listen only mode. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We will answer them at the end of the session. The webinar is being recorded and we'll be sharing the recording soon. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined today by two incredible leaders. First, Alfred Ahan, Executive Director of the ASP. Al has a decade of experience shaping the best practices, fostering knowledge sharing, and leading conversation around the evolving role of support. He's been a guiding voice in helping organizations not just adopt new technology, but reimagine their support strategy. Then we have Vishal Sharma, CTO at SearchUnify, with over a decade of experience building enterprise search solutions and rethinking end-to-end CRM management. Vishal has been at the forefront of applying advanced technologies to transform support. His work positions SearchUnify as a trusted agentic AI platform for organizations worldwide. And we have Gurpreet, head of support, who will be demonstrating few parts of the product. Handing over to you, Al.
Well, hello everybody. I'm delighted to be here. ASP's relationship with SearchUnify goes back 6 years when we had our first conference on AI use in support. And it was clear at that time, it was very early on and there weren't a lot of companies that really had begun to utilize AI. But if we fast forward to today, things have changed dramatically. In fact, all four of our award-winning best support websites this year use extensive AI in their support, and one received a nomination for best use of generative AI. So things have changed a lot. So Vishal, would you like to run us through some of the changes that have been going on with support portals and what some of the pain points have been that have been driving them?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think proud to have you on the panel today. Big fan of your work. And thank you, Gurpreet, for joining us. I will definitely take your help at some point of time to show some real stuff. So it's not really just a talk, but let's really put something on the screen as well. Um, I'll honestly, I'm so happy that you asked me this question because I think we've got this first-hand experience in terms of how this evolution has happened. Parent company Griziti has been in this business for over a decade now. In fact, this has been our bread and butter for a long period of time. We've built hundreds of support portals, community forums, help centers. The support has always been a part of DNA. And if you ask me, how do we see this whole evolution that has happened? Is probably I'd put that into four stages. Generation one, 10 years ago, I'm sure we all have seen those clunky support portals. Literally, if you ask me, they're like dump yards of your frequently asked questions and some tabular reports of your cases. And it's so hard to navigate the cases as well as the knowledge that you're looking for, I would say. In fact, Riziti was actually the pioneer in terms of ensuring that the portals need to look beautiful as well, not just a piece of information. And what we've seen in those days is that obviously the experience is so bad, the customers would automatically fall back to more convenient approaches like emails and just dialing via phone. And then I think we saw a good 3 to 4 years of self-service sort of an era where, including us at SearchUnify, we've helped our customers stitch all the customer-facing web properties via federated search, and try to give an amazing connected experience, unified experience to the end customers on support portals. Externally to the customers, obviously, Alan, we wanted, I think all of us wanted that it's a self-service era. We want you to do the self-service. Internally, the talk of the town was still deflection, which is not a great thing. So I think on the experience rating, it's still probably like 6-ish, 7-ish out of 10. And then probably the most overrated era of support portal websites. We've seen all sort of chatbots flying around. Um, first part of that was first wave was more of where you see those story-based, um, rule-driven, flow-driven chatbots, which are a really, really, really frustrating experience. And then post Gen AI, we've started seeing some improvements where you ask a question, at least you get an answer which you can consume. But I think that also sort of like started hitting its limits because it's still very reactive in nature. You ask a question, if the content exists, you'll get an answer. But anything complex, you are still stuck. And now finally, I think we all are seeing this very, very bullish stage of agentic era, which I'm sure all our ESP members are experimenting in some or other way. But yeah, I think this is where we all are very excited, and we at SearchUnify are also taking that leap and helping our customers. Yeah, so long answer, but I think it's been 10, 12 years. We've been seeing all of that. Yeah.
Well, we agree. Self-service is no longer just something you do for extra points. It's required if you want to be in business today. You mentioned agentic, and that's of course something we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, we ought to make a distinction. Generative AI is still around. That was really brought to the world when ChatGPT came out. And speaking with some of our members, I was shocked one day to get a call from a friend of mine at Oracle. He's the VP of support there. And he said, Al, we've been taking many months to years to generate apps for support. He said, since generative AI has come out, we can now develop a new app in 2 or 3 months. So, generative is going to be around, and it's good for content, but agentic adds in, I think, an element of extra intelligence in terms of making decisions, helping to accomplish missions, things like that. So I believe our members need to better understand. Not all of them have begun experimenting with agentic AI. They should, but they haven't. And many of them may be confused about the distinctions between the two.
No, I completely agree. I think Gen AI was definitely a big leap in terms of improving the whole experience. And it's completely all right to have that gradual sort of a transition from Gen AI to sort of agentic AI. No need to make that drastic or just like a one-day cutover sort of a change. Gen AI definitely brought its own values. The way I look at Gen AI, as I said, is more reactive in nature. You still need to give some sort of an input and most of the companies have leveraged Gen AI sort of like a wrapper on top of their existing search engines. And we've done similar sort of implementation for our customers as well. With the idea is that you just get the query, you talk to the search engine, then you go to the LLM and then try and generate an answer for the user that the user can really consume at the end of the day in a more humanly format. But still, at the end of the day, it's more reactive, and that's where the major difference comes when you switch to pure agentic era, because agentic is more about planning, I would say. That's the first step. So when you ask me a question, how do I break that into small steps? Because that's how we as a human in support functions would do. Any complex conversation should be divided into small steps. planning is the first part. Then second is more about reasoning and thinking for each step. Um, Third is about deciding what is the right action that you should be doing for this specific step. And then finally, if you feel like you have the controls and you have all the access to the world, why don't you just go ahead and take that action as well? So agentic, to my mind, is more intelligent, more autonomous in nature, and gives you a feeling that you're really coming out of that age of, as I said, FAQs or self-service sort of setups versus like you sort of like a thinking partner in these support portals with you, somebody who's really thinking for you and all your problems and challenges, and very proactive in nature. And how do you really see the difference on your portals? That's also important for us to understand, because this is all academic otherwise. Is the level of hyper personalization that you can build with agentic is huge. It's no longer just your greeting with the first name or maybe a little bit of your purchase history. It's way more than that. In the real time, you can get data about your historical cases, the health of the account, the similar patterns you're seeing with other customers as well. How the conversation changes when customer takes a different route altogether or just asks you a very different question. How do you change that context? All that capability exists in the technology now, which means that the conversations can be very, very, very personalized. Also, that's one. The second impact that you can definitely start seeing from day one is here you have a technology that really owns the outcomes for you now, versus just giving you an answer like GenAI. Here you get an answer, but then you get there's a big element of explainability as well, and the thought behind that answer. Why do you get that answer? Why I decided to share that information with you, and why I decided to recommend those actions for you. So that's the second part, which I think is great. And the third and the most important part is how do you bring in the human element in such integrations is also very seamless now, because the technology has the power of thinking now that, okay, where to really hold the conversation and where to probably just fold it and hand it over to assisted support. That experience can be very, very seamless now, which is why I said in the beginning as well that it's no longer about just thinking about deflection. It's really about the end experience for customers, and it's completely all right if the customer is having a P0, or if the customer is really frustrated. It's completely all right to make sure that we don't really frustrate the user with forced self-service through these portals and make it super easy. Yeah, make it super easy for them to get to the assisted support. So just in one line, I would say, I think I mean, I can see that uncertainty also for a lot of people that, okay, we've seen some blow-ups also happening, chatbots giving you some wrong answers or like coding different coding policies that don't exist at all in their answers. We've heard all of that.
Good way to make your customer more unhappy, right?
Yeah, so I can understand that current in the year then, and a little bit of a nervousness. Do you want to do that or not? And we've had some customers like, we want to test it for like 4 months, 3 months before we are confident that we can put it in front of the customers. It's completely all right to have that feeling, I would say, but I think this is a technology which is changing so fast, and probably we won't have time to adapt so quickly. So I think it's better to experiment. Start doing the experiments and see where we are, and when we are confident, just probably launch it to the customers. Yeah.
Well, Vishal, you mentioned two things in particular that really caught my attention. One is personalization. That's something we've been harping on our members and companies that enter our best support websites competition about for years. And you think this is going to help improve that, maybe take it to another level, sounds like. And then the other one is seamless, because companies, inside the companies, there are all these silos that contribute different fragments or different parts of the needed things for support. Documentation, training, may have videos, multimedia, all kinds of different things. But the other one I want to ask you about that we'd love to see and haven't really seen very much is proactive support. Can Agentic be helpful in proactive support?
Yeah, absolutely. I think proactive is definitely one core part of agentic, because if you come with if you really talk about a technology that has that power of thinking um, for you, then this is definitely the right time in customer support where we can come up with something which is very, very proactive in nature. In fact, I was for this webinar itself, I was sketching something in terms of how a futuristic support portal might just look like, in terms of and going back to your question as well, like for some of us, like we're not really ready for that drastic change yet. How do we really make that slow transition and think about those elements, and how do we add those colors of agentic AI in our support portals? Let me see if I can just quickly pull my screen. I hope all of you guys can see my screen, but the way I see the things unfolding is I think it's probably the good time where at least take the first step to unclutter your support portal and that loads of information that you have on your landing pages. Probably just take that away for a minute. And I'll come back to that. It's not that we are trashing everything out, but the experience needs to start with a very simple assistant, which is like you just ask me anything and I'll be happy to help you. This is definitely a lot of our members are already trying, and some of us are still calling that chatbot. And I'll tell you why they're not chatbots. They are way more smarter than chatbots. But for those of you who are not ready to really rethink of the whole experience, they can still revisit, I would say, some of the widgets that they've been deploying on their support portals. Is how do you add that element of thinking, explainability in those widgets so that they look more agentic and become way more powerful to the end users. So for example, like AI Case Manager is one such widget. I was thinking this is probably going to be part of our future portals where you're not really dumping a list of open cases for your customers, but that really adds that element of not just. So GenAI brings that AI summary of that case, but then are there any recommendations that you can take right away? Are there some so in terms of like how the diagnosis is happening, Agentic can do a better job in terms of ingesting your comments and dissecting them, and then presenting them to you so that you get a better picture of what's happening with your case on the back end with the support engineer. How's the timeline flying? What is the prediction in terms of closure? And then are there possible actions that you can right away allow the support agent that they should just take, or you can probably supply more information proactively to make the resolution much faster. So I think that's definitely one area where I see a lot of customers would start adopting that right away. But then the second part, which is more about proactive, which you all called out, is something very, very, very powerful. So this is where I think we see much deeper integrations of support portals with the products altogether happening now. And the engineering teams have started opening up their logs and access to their systems so that those integrations can be built much smartly. But the idea is before you get the case, how do you really predict that case through the patterns you're seeing and try and put that case in front of the end user? So this, for example, something like this rate limiting violation, we can see something happening in the logs. We can see that you guys are already hitting the ceiling in terms of your API limits, and what is possibly what might just happen. Either you would end up, because of violation, you might end up paying more next month in your license or subscription, or you better have a call quickly and just adjust those things. your limits. So these are the things which can proactively, I mean, you have to wait for the end customer to raise a ticket and then, oh my God, you've already exhausted. Now we can't really help you. Versus the system is very smart detecting and presenting that information upfront. So for me, it's like a pseudo case. Even though it's a pseudo case, this is a very, very important case for the customer. The customer has not really thought about this yet, but this is coming their way. And then the whole success, I would say, unit has to be embedded as part of the support centers. And this is like, again, like very experimental in nature right now. We've been just trying some experiments with our customers. That how do you make sure that the success unit is not really running as in a silo or as like a separate unit altogether, but they run very seamless with support. And within the support portal itself, we have some very smart recommendations where we see that, okay, this is where you are in your journey, but and we strongly recommend you schedule a call with your CSM right now, or maybe at some point of time, and then make nice steps in your onboarding so that some of the future tickets can be avoided. So I think these are the things where as I said, like make sure you add those colors of reasoning, thinking, and wherever possible actions you can integrate. These like quick low-hanging fruits that we should start right away. Then I think the help center part, the knowledge part also needs to be slightly smarter now with Agentic AI. I would hate to put those standard widgets like popular articles on one side, recent articles on the other side, and you start consuming and some of us are obviously doing like recommended for you. But I think the learning has to be holistic, and not just about that one specific case. So the kind of patterns you've seen from the last few cases, it's better to leverage Agentic AI now because the technology is there now to curate some really smart learning paths, which are highly personalized in nature and which really sort of picks up the different flavor, different elements from your self-service content. It can be your knowledge-based article. It can be one of your course. It can be a set of community threads where a good, thorough discussion has happened on a topic which you're struggling with, or it could be just a product documentation guide. So based on your retention of the self-service content, the Agentic AI is smart enough to make those recommendations and quick wins for you, and you can execute those learning paths quickly. So those are some of the things which I feel are low-hanging fruits, as I said. So we don't recommend to make drastic changes right away, but at least the existing elements itself. I mean, there are two ways to do it. Like obviously, one is doing retrofitting of Agentic AI to your existing portals, and the other is more like just starting from scratch, taking completely Agentic AI native approach to your support portals. I think there's no harm in doing trying both of them, depending upon how much investment you've already done in your portals. And then I think the main one, which is always the talk of the town now, is that one smart assistant which can do everything for you. And gladly, we've already adopted that on our own support portal itself, which is why I invited my head of support, Gurpreet, because he's been running all these agentic experiments on our support portal. I'll invite Gurpreet. Maybe you can probably just share a screen and show some of the stuff that we've been doing, and if that is helpful to our members and our audience today. But the idea is that, as I said in the beginning, we want to make sure a system that's focused on the experience, not really just on the deflection. The deflection always has to be a side effect of a good experience that you're providing. So I'll just give it to you, Gurpreet, quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. Yeah, so I think before even I start sharing my screen, I would like to tell that me and Vishal used to discuss a lot about the community experience for our end users. We want to make it very personalized for the end users. How can we make it very simple, but yet very powerful tool for our customers to find the relevant content they're asking for, right? And just to come up with a solution, let me just share my screen. So yeah, so this is the kind of experience I think Vishal has already covered. one piece of our agentic AI experience we have launched on our community portal itself. The customer can come up, they can ask the queries, and they would get the support. Not just that they are getting answers to the question they are asking, but it's smartly also, try to follow up on the to the customers, give the next action that they can do, and beside that, they can also do the case management itself. So quickly to demonstrate, let me just put a quick query, just like, can you list my tickets? Yeah. So for example, in this case, so one thing before even beside the traditional chatbot experience, right? The first of all, it actually try to classify the query. So right now, for example, if I've asked the question, it is classifying either is it a kind of service request, or should I be sharing some helpful content to the customer, or do I need to just give some content that could be helpful? In this case, it actually classified it as that I am asking details on my tickets. It's not actually a self-service kind of request. So it is giving me all the details of the cases that I have logged on, right? Now,
Gurpreet, you're on mute.
I am audible now. Sorry. Okay. So the moment I ask the next question, can you give me the update on the above ticket? Now it smartly tries to get the updates on the ticket. So it has given me the latest comment that I've been adding on the ticket. But if you see clearly that it is telling me that support team is ready to assist you with crawling Jira field, because this is the next step that is required on the ticket, right? So that means it is also giving me the next actions or the follow-up on the ticket that I should be doing. Now, so this is one kind of smartness in the system, that after agentic, that how can we mold that experience? Just that's a little bit comparison of traditional chatbot versus how agentic AI could make a difference, right? Now, what if within the same chat I switch my context, right? I simply says, okay, how can I install Salesforce content source? So this is our terminology, content source, where we actually index our data. So I'm just asking that how can I index the Salesforce content into SearchUnify? Right now, again, this is where it would again try to classify the query, right? In this case, it is actually trying to, so why it is taking time? Because it is thinking at behind, it is adding more power, because now it has the capability of reasoning, thinking. Most of the LLM have been smart now, right? So as you can see, there's a difference. In the first query, you will see there is no recommended documentations for my problem. But the moment it found that this is a query about how can I install the content source, that means I am asking for some steps or knowledge. So it is giving me the recommendation of the sources I can go for, and it also giving the steps that I can follow, right? Now what, for example, so this is where I have shown you that if I change the context, does it change with my queries or not? But what if I want now it to remember or keeps the context in the memory? So for that, let me just give you an example. Okay, thank you. But what about Horus? Now here I haven't given the complete context, but because I was already communicating with the agentic AI that I am asking about the installation of content source as a Salesforce. But now what about Chorus? So now it picked up the previous context because I was talking about the content source. So it has smartly, able to recognize the same intention and gave me the answers on based of that, right? So this is kind of experience where it can smartly now detects if I need to keep the context in the memory or not, or when I need to leave the context out of this memory. So this is
now
so
the idea is like, Yeah, just quickly, Gurpreet, I want to summarize, I think, what we've seen so far. As I said in the beginning, there's an intelligent front door detection system, which is ensuring that we're not forcing self-service when it is not required. Um, so even though we see like a chatbot sort of experience, but it is like a multi-agent orchestration happening. There is an AI classification agent on the back end, which is constantly screening those incoming queries and adjusting and making that call and sending that signal back to the support AI support assistant that, okay, this is a conversation that needs to go through the self-service route. This is a conversation that should not be blocked at all. It's a service request altogether.
You going to show more?
We have lost you, Vishal. Okay, I think meanwhile.
Conversations that how do you, yeah.
Sorry, Vishal,
Yeah,
actually we had lost you in between.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear now.
Yes,
Okay.
we can now.
Yeah. Okay. No, basically, I was just saying that there are multi-agent orchestration system which is happening on the back end. So the AI classification agent does a good job in terms of detecting whether it is a self-service or a service query, and then a escalation agent is constantly looking at customers' historical behavior, historical tickets, current open tickets, and then sort of like guiding the AI support assistant, the conversational agent here, that whether should you take the customer through the self-service journey or maybe it's a very risky idea, not a good idea, and based on the entitlement of the customer, just make it seamless for the customer to move from self-service to assisted support. So it's a multi-agent system which is constantly talking to each other.
Yeah,
So,
thanks. Yeah.
Vishal, I think we agree, and Gurpreet, that Agentic is powerful, in many ways more powerful than previous types of AI, but there must be some risks. What are the challenges that support leaders should expect when getting into Agentic AI?
Yeah, so good question, Al. The implementations are not super cool, I would say. There are definitely some challenges. In fact, there's a good slide that covers some of the things that that we've seen, at least not just in our implementation, but what we're doing for our customers as well. And first and foremost is hallucinations. We've all seen how the bots can. I just quoted like a chatbot from Cursor ended up quoting a policy which never existed. And how do you really control that? So that's one thing. And at least how do we do that at part of SearchUnify? I think the only mantra to fix that is you need to have a very robust underlying RAG engine. For customer support, you really can't trust on LLMs in inherent knowledge for answers. You have to supply that information, and you have to make sure that underlying RAG engine is doing that grounding for the whole integration. So we at SearchUnify use under our own proprietary federated retrieval augmented generation system, we call it FRAG. The idea is that whenever you get a query, and before you connect any large language model, you have to send that query to our internal vector search engine. And here also you have to do a very smart job in terms of whether that query is a query like somebody just dumping a error code, which qualifies for keyword search engine sort of a RAG request, versus a more phrased sort of a query, which has can be a deeper meaning to that, has to go to a vector search engine. And then in enterprises, you have to make sure that you add the right level of access controls, permissions, all of those things as well, to make sure that nobody gets to see what they should not be seeing. And then once this adaptive retrieval has happened, then you pass that information to a large language model. We generally make some recommendations on the large language model as well for our customers. We believe in that BYOLLM approach. And once you get the answer, then also there's a layer of large language model as a judge at times to look at if there's a possibility of 15-20% hallucination that still exists. How do you control that? So this whole framework is something that we at least use from our side to ensure that there's least amount of hallucination. It can still be a possibility of something going wrong, but at least this controls most of the deployment, and it's been working for us fairly well. So that's one. The second challenge we see in enterprises is data privacy and security. When you talk about building agentic AI integrations on your support portals, this can be very risky, and this is why, again, I think at SearchUnify, our thinking has been a multi-layer sort of approach for guardrails. So once you get the input, we obviously have checks on profanity and PII, which is like fairly standard. Everybody is probably doing that now. But then one of the challenges that you're seeing with agentic system is that you've sort of like instructed your AI agent to call a specific action. For example, just making a call to a CRM at some point of time when you figure out in your reasoning that this is where you are. But you would still that it's a probabilistic model at the end of the day, and you would see that sometimes it's failing. So there has to be a tool called validation. We call it tools. The modern day term for that is NCPs. So how do you validate that as well? There's a layer for that as well. And then the context retention. When a chat is long, how do you summarize that? How do you make sure that the context is highly optimized so that you're not losing any information? And every conversation that end user is doing is not getting a sense that the bot has really forgotten the discussion. And hallucination detection, as I told you in the beginning itself, is also part of this. We do other things also, for example, ensuring that some key topics, key themes that you're detecting in customers' data are not going to large language models. You check for fairness, you check for biasness as well. So those things are part of our AI guardrails engine, this multi-layered framework that we're using to ensure that those things are in place. Then the third part is a third challenge we've seen is that, see, all of these agentic AI systems at the end of the day, they need to work on top of content. And how do they really get the access to this content is still that old way through a search engine. In our case, as I told you, we leverage Frag. But then how do you make sure that the quality of the search results which are coming are really up to the mark? And for that also, we've got this score framework in place. So the idea is to do the right level of embeddings through chunking, and then use the right embedding models, do a little bit of A/B testing also in detecting the right model for our customers looking at their data. At times fine-tuning and training those models as well. And then the good embedding model is not enough. You have to deploy re-ranking technologies on top of that to make sure that the top 10 results that you get are also sorted again to get the most relevant first or second result. Because at the end of the day, if you have to do a large language model integration, you have to make sure that the context is highly optimized. You can't be sending 50 documents to LLMs and expect it to answer it from that. So that's where the whole engineering goes. And last challenge is cost. We call it, we're just calling it amazing ROI on the slide, but I think at the end of the day, it's actually cost. How do you optimize the cost of your setup? Because technically, at the end of the day, you can deploy the best-in-class LLMs, you can deploy best-in-class embeddings, re-rankers, but how do you keep a check on the cost as well? So at least from our side, we've been very transparent. We put that LLM uses dashboard in our most product offerings, so you get to see what you're using in terms of the tokens. As I said, we've been BYO LLM from day one, which means we let our customers plug their own in-house trained LLMs as well if they want to, or whatever we are recommending, they can always flip, or if there is a new technology, because the space is changing so fast. So if you see something better than what you've been already using yesterday, why not to plug that and try that? So that flexibility exists in the product. And last is, as I said, for different use cases, we've seen different GenAI technologies performing better. So we offer that LLM benchmarking / A/B testing in our setups, and you can try out, okay, if it is a knowledge generation use case versus simple Q&A sort of a setup, or versus a case summarization. which one is the best model and more affordable model for me to plug with. So yeah, I mean, these like 3 or 4 things, Al. There's obviously a list of other things as well, but I think these are like 3 or 4 things which we strongly feel everybody should just keep in check whenever they're doing and taking this journey from um, traditional support portals to more agentic AI era portals.
Okay. That was pretty complete, I think. And I imagine for some people, they're really working hard to get their mind around all of this because agentic is still pretty new. But I want to deliver a strong message to our members and friends that this is not an option. We've seen from, in particular, leading companies that we've awarded for their best support websites, like NetApp, Dell, Red Hat, Siemens, Digital Industry Software. All of these companies are using AI and typically in several different ways. So it's not an option anymore. It really is a matter of sending a signal that you're current and you have the tools that people want. Now, people definitely want self-service, and they don't want to call you. They want to just go to your portal and get their question, or Google, and get their question answered or their problem solved. So at one point it was an option. This is no longer the case. It's now survival. And I would encourage all of our members and all of our friends, if you haven't gotten into using AI for support, you're already falling behind. And you should jump into this with all 4 feet as fast as you possibly can, because the rest of the world is passing you by. It may seem a bit daunting at first, but people like SearchUnify can help you with that. So, and they're not the only ones. There are about a lot of people working in this area, and support is getting, I think, a lot of attention, as it should, as it always should have, actually. But in the past, we didn't always get that kind of attention. Now we can get it, and we have products available to actually help us do our jobs. Please don't fail to take advantage of that. This is, if you don't, the person that replaces you will. So any last, Vishal?
Yeah, I completely agree, Al. I think we have a question also in the chat, which is similar to on the lines of what you just called out. I understand, as I said in the beginning, that there are some underlying fears in terms of customer satisfaction probably going down. But I think all of that depends on the quality of your implementation as well. At the end of the day, I think most of this will depend upon the quality of content you have in the system. You've done a good job in terms of capturing your resolutions into knowledge articles or some sort of a help. That's the only way all such integrations of Agentic AI are going to work. That's one. The second is obviously how good the prompting you're doing. At the end of the day, it's all prompt engineering now. So how good prompt engineering we're doing, and the whole MCP and tools calling as well has to be a very well connected system altogether. If you do that, I still expect, like, maybe for some of the scenarios you might end up seeing some heat from your customers, but as El said, it's not really a choice now. This is something is definitely going to evolve and improve in the next few, not even I would say years, but probably few weeks or few months. Every other day we're seeing something new happening, which is completely revolutionized in terms of the outcomes. We at SearchUnify have taken this complete journey from find of a search engine to assist. We ended up launching Copilots, and now we have this full suite of AI support agents who can really act as co-workers with you and help you augment some of the work that you guys are doing. We just talked about AI support agent today and a little bit of a flavor of AI escalation agent and classification agent as well. But once the case moves from, the user moves from self-service to assisted support, we have also another set of army like a competency agent that can actually get into more complex issues, can get access to your ELK logs, um, can get access to telemetry data, and launch swarming channels on the fly with experts, human agents, consume that, send that information to AI support agent, can do a good job in terms of validating the handoff, documenting everything, ensuring that all information is there from the customer. Then we have this AI knowledge agent, which does a phenomenal job in terms of capturing the case resolutions and converting them into a formal piece of knowledge article so that this loop can be completed. And AI support agent can start leveraging that information and sort of help the customers with same cases in future. We have this AI case quality auditor as well, which is really looking at not just how your human agents are solving cases, but the AI agents as well. Somebody needs to keep a check on that as well, as you said, rightly said, to ensure the CSAT is not going down. So this AI case quality auditor is actually doing that. Once the case is closed, it really scans the whole information, just like your manual auditor on the different parameters. It would just try and rank and make some recommendations in terms of how can you really coach your support engineers. So we see like some of these are already on production. Some of them are in POCs, but we've not seen too many customers saying that, oh, no, we don't want to try them. So I think I would strongly recommend that bare minimum we should experiment and see what part of this can go to production. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we do have time for questions. If anyone has a question, now would be the time for you to type it in, and we'll get you some answers.
Yeah, I just answered one question from the chat. Rupert, do you see any other question as well?
I think we don't have any more questions.
No, but you might want to give a couple minutes for people to type them in.
Yeah.
We've just given a lot of information. It may take a few seconds for them to decide how to frame their questions. I know you have questions out there in your mind, so why don't you type them in and give us a chance to answer them for everybody. There's a couple coming up.
So someone has asked that, can you give a succinct wrap up of the difference between the generative AI and agentic AI?
Well, I can try one more time, but as I said in the beginning, to me, I think generative AI is more reactive in nature. You're still waiting for that input to come from the end customer, and then you try and wrap your response in a more humanly format and just serve that to the end customer. And again, I think most of the time GenAI is being used in our implementations as a wrapper on top of the search engines and try to create that GPT style response to the question. Versus agentic AI is more proactive in nature. It can reason, it can think, it can plan, it can break your instruction into multiple steps, it can call other agents. Look at agentic AI is more like a digital, sort of like a army of support engineers working with you on different stuff. So somebody on the back end just looking at historical cases, somebody on the back end churning out new knowledge articles, somebody just detecting and trying to gauge customer on the sentiment, this temperature parameter as well. But at the end of the day, once it reasons and thinks and plan, it has the capability to decide and take an action as well. So a lot of times you would see that it would just make a recommendation that I've already launched. I've already created a ticket for you because I saw that there's some anomaly in terms of your API limits or something like that. So those are the things you should expect from Agentic AI.
We do have another question. You mentioned the possibility of allowing bring your own LLM. Do you also suggest or offer a bring your own RAG system?
Yes, I think in fact we have some customers who've done a lot of investment in developing their own RAG systems. We work with a lot of high-tech companies of the world. And when Agentic AI and Gen AI started, when it came, some of our customers, they always wanted to try training their in-house RAG engines as well. We have that capability. You can always plug your RAG engines to our AI agents, and you can see how they're performing. One of the challenges which we've seen generally in developing RAG is not really making a centralized search index, but how do you embed ACLs? Because in enterprises, the permissions pre-binding is equally important. And how do you fuse the historical behavior of the user as well on your content? So those are the things where I think you probably need to do a little bit of a work, but otherwise, we are fairly flexible. We can always plug customers' RAG engines as well. Yeah.
While we're waiting to see if we get any more questions, one of the things that I'd like to mention, because you have to generate all the justifications to your financial people for why you're going to spend money to do this, because it's not free. Like any other good thing, it costs money. But what I've heard from our members is that it's worked in different ways than they initially expected. So, for example, in writing knowledge-based articles, they're getting help, in this case, mostly from generative AI. But in general, what they're finding is they're freeing up their people from some of the kind of the drudgery of day-to-day work and enable them to do higher level tasks, to do the more complicated things where you really need the human interaction. So, that's pretty much most of the people that I've talked to that have been using AI have said the same thing, that often the uses and the benefits are not always exactly what they expected, sometimes and often greater, but occur in ways that didn't occur to them to expect at first. But it doesn't necessarily mean you fire all the humans. What it means is, because those are hard to get and expensive people that you really want to keep, but deploy them to more important tasks where they're really needed.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. All right, so no more questions, Rupert?
We are little overboard in our time. If you have any questions, please send us. We'll answer them. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have covered a lot today, starting with the evolution of customer support portals and exploring the limitations of traditional AI, and diving into how agentic AI is opening up an entirely new frontier of support leaders. Thank you, Vishal, Al, and Gurpreet for showcasing agentic AI and demonstrating a few aspects of the agentic ecosystem. We'll be sharing the webinar recording soon, in a couple of days. Thank you so much on behalf of entire team. Thanks a lot.